Good morning. How's everybody doing? Oh my gosh, you ready to learn something new? Because I am. This is exciting. Okay, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started with this amazing day. Welcome to AI Day at USC. Today is not about one person, one tool, or one big idea. It's about us as a campus community and how we all learn, work, and move forward together in a world where artificial intelligence is already a part of daily life. For those I haven't met, my name is Adrian Anderson, and I am an AI educator in the Division of Information Technology. Before stepping into this role, I served as the Assistant Director for Academic Integrity. Like many faculty, staff, and students, I approached AI with a hesitation. I wondered about misuse, shortcuts, and what it might mean for learning. But I didn't stop there. I asked questions, I tested things out, I learned from colleagues and students, and what I found was this. When used thoughtfully, AI doesn't replace good teaching or meaningful work. It can support it. And that's what today is about. AI Day is going to be a space to explore what's possible, to learn from each other, and to leave with practical ideas you can actually use. Whether you teach, support students, do research, or manage operations, I challenge you today to stay curious, question assumptions, try something new, and give yourself permission to learn, even if you don't have all the answers yet. I challenge you today to stay curious, question assumptions, try something new, and give yourself permission. Today, you'll hear from leaders all across campus, like Dana Talbert and Vice President Sylvia Patricia Rios in Student Success, as well as our amazing faculty and faculty trainers, like Gloria Washington and Matt Thatcher in the Center for Teaching Excellence. We are in excellent company. And events like this don't happen without strong partners. We're grateful for our support from Boodlebox, Zoom Communications, ServiceNow, and Better, whose partnerships help make today possible. From sessions and demos to lunch and a few sweet treats later this afternoon. Thank you, Boodlebox, for sponsoring lunch and Pelican snowballs. Your investment supports innovation and learning across our campus community. I also want to recognize our community partner, Web Girls Code, an organization doing incredible work to bring technology, education to girls and women in underserved communities. Their focus on access, creativity, and confidence reflects the values we hope to model here today. I encourage you all to visit their table and learn more about their mission. Throughout the day, I hope you'll take time to visit Research Computing as well, upstairs in 348. This is an open drop-in experience designed for conversation and discovery, not just for the researchers in the room or technical experts. If you're curious about how AI actually runs, what kind of computing power supports research, or how these resources connect real projects on campus, this space is for you. Stop by, ask questions, and explore. Also, there'll be a Dell virtual experience truck out on Green Street around lunchtime, so watch out for their arrival. And now it's my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Grace Farrell. Grace is a senior principal analyst at Gartner, where she focuses on higher education systems and the practical use of AI on campus. Her work bridges technology and people, helping institutions make thoughtful, informed decisions about how tools, AI tools specifically, can fit into teaching, learning, and student success. So please join me in welcoming Grace as she helps set the tone for our engaging and meaningful AI Day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Adrian. By the way, if you didn't notice, Adrian and I both are in our spring suits. We're full of color today, so I encourage everyone to wear some bright colors as we head into the spring. But as Adrian mentioned, I'm honored to be here. And thank you so much for coming to Campus AI Day. As Adrian mentioned, I focus on the practical use of AI on campus. And why that is so incredibly important is because in the next 12 to 18 months, you're going to attend a lot of conferences, be in a lot of sessions, boardrooms, where AI is being served to you like a moon on a stick. AI that fixes your tech even before it breaks. AI that advises every student perfectly, 100% student retention every single year. AI that makes your curriculum future-proof, where you never have to redesign your curriculum again at your institution. What about AI that writes strategic roadmaps that actually happen? AI that solves 100% of data governance issues. AI that turns you into the hero on campus. We're hearing a lot of this rhetoric right now, and something that I like to remind every single higher education institution I work with is AI is not a magic Band-Aid. There are certainly a lot of very productive things you could do with artificial intelligence. I've seen students build amazing things with agentic capabilities in artificial intelligence. But let's not forget that it's not going to help with your bad data on campus, your disconnected systems. Many of the higher education CIOs and IT leaders I work with right now are saying, well, Grace, can't we just replace our student information system with agentic AI? The answer to that is no, and not for a very long time will that even be a possibility. So I really want to mention this is that the goal of a Gartner analyst, for those of you who are deeply unfamiliar with Gartner, we try to separate the hype and what vendors are messaging to you with the actual reality and the practical use cases of what we're seeing on campus. Today, I want to break this down into 3 parts. We're going to start with the current state. Where are we at with AI in higher education? What are some of the adoption rates and current gaps that I'm seeing from global higher ed institutions? We're then going to talk about AI across campus and also the very important factor of human readiness compared to AI readiness. And people keep on forgetting that human readiness piece. We're then going to move on to what we are observing. Gartner's role is to survey hundreds and thousands of CIOs and IT leaders, not only in higher education, but across industry. So today we're going to see what institutions and also global companies are investing and how they are investing in AI. We are going to talk about AI cost creep, some of the major AI players, the household names that we all use on a daily basis, as one of the smaller, concentrated rollouts that I'm also observing. We are going to look at peer use cases and what good looks like on other campuses. And finally, we are going to move towards where we're headed. Everyone is asking me right now, how do we prepare for that AI native workforce? Are our students ready? Do we have that AI ready graduate and what that means and how we can conceptualize that? And finally, we're going to take a look at your institution's roadmap and how we can progress from here. So before we get started, I always like to ground this because we can spend about 2 hours talking about the nuances between automation, machine learning, agentic AI, generative AI, general artificial intelligence. But just for time's sake today and for grounding purposes, we're really going to be talking about Gen AI as an ask and answer technology. Now, most of the time when you hear people say AI, we know it's been around for decades. But what they're really talking about is you are asking a large language model a question and receiving an answer in natural language. You're going to hear a lot of hype about agentic AI, and we will get to the portion of this presentation today. But just as a differentiator, agents have the ability to act on your behalf. That human in the loop is less than what we have with generative AI. So you'll notice that throughout today's presentation, I will use Gen AI and AI interchangeably. Really what I'm talking about for the purpose of today is these ask and answer technologies. So we know there's a lot of noise right now. For the past 3.5, 4 years, AI has come in like a wrecking ball. And when you look at your university, it's likely that your near-term strategy, long-term strategy, and current drivers of change has fundamentally shifted over time. I have CIOs and IT leaders asking me, how do we control AI use on campus? Can we control AI use on campus? What are some of the guardrails, ethics, privacy concerns I should be talking about with my board and my stakeholders? And of course, there's a lot of noise. You've likely read a lot of thought pieces on AI in the past few years. I find that there's a spectrum, and I was talking to Adrian about this. You have AI doomerism, which is AI is going to completely upend the world and higher education as we know it. And then you have people who are AI romanticism and romantics. You and your AI digital twin will hold hands and ride off into the sunset together. It's probably good to be somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. But all of that to say there's a lot of noise and a lot of buzz right now impacting higher education. And it's true that it will continue to impact every domain. Something that I say that every single higher education institution I visit is that you will notice when you speak to vendors who have served your institution for decades, learning management systems, CRMs, SISs. Now everybody is an AI vendor. Every vendor is now focused on AI, even if they didn't originally intend to set out to do that in the first place. From a political standpoint, we know that there's really complex government landscapes right now. A world leader just said, whoever owns AI owns the world. So we see that there is this AI arms race, different strategies and competing interests, digital nation states. From an economic point of view, we know, especially in higher education, where we're very financially constrained, AI infrastructure is incredibly expensive. And how do we manage AI cost creep? Of course, from a social perspective, I have a lot of education leaders outside of the IT business unit asking me, well, do we shorten that time to degree? Is the 4-year traditional degree dead? How do we shorten time to value for many of our higher education learners? How many AI skills and credentials do they need to successfully enter the workforce? There's also AI inequities. Who gets access to AI? And are we widening that digital divide? And then finally, from a regulatory and legal perspective, we know there is AI vendor dominance. Like anything in the tech industry, we have major players. We have lawsuits, we have copyright battles. And then what many Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and people in the workforce are concerned about is how much water and electricity a lot of these data centers take to cool for AI. So again, you will continue to see throughout the next 10 years, AI impacting every domain. That is why you have to sit through so many AI sessions. It will fundamentally change every single domain in the world. Now, I want to talk about the adoption timeline very quickly. Think about November of 2022, when ChatGPT was first released to the public. It was the most popular consumer app. It went viral almost immediately. You then had the diaspora of other vendors who have been working on large language models for quite some time, but they grew in popularity, and many users using many of these vendors. But then we start getting into the progression of embedded AI in some of your core technologies. Chances are if you've gone to a vendor conference in the past 2 years, like I mentioned, every vendor is now an AI vendor. You see that the purpose has shifted from some of these core systems to, hey, now we have agentic capabilities. We're embedding AI into a lot of our systems to make your campus smarter, faster, better. And then where I see most of these institutions exploring right now is actually more on an individual use case basis. How are we really looking at artificial intelligence to serve our needs on campus? I'm seeing a lot more institutions build on top of what they already have from an AI foundation, make it more personalized. I'm actually seeing some vendors and institutions in Australia work together to democratize AI access and make it more widely accessible for institutions. We're going to get into that today as well. So for those of you who have not seen this, this is our hype cycle. The Gartner hype cycle really progresses technology throughout time and expected expectations and value. And what I want to remind everyone is that generative AI is the fastest moving technology through our hype cycle ever. Take a look at where generative AI was in 2023, right at the peak of inflated expectations. People were really excited about it. There was curiosity, experimentation. As we move towards 2024, there was a little bit of a difference, right? We start to climb towards that trough of disillusionment. People are starting to realize hallucinations, bias, some of the faults with AI. But look at what happened in 2025. Way in the trough of disillusionment. That's a huge jump. And to give you just a comparative analysis, student information systems have sat in the trough of disillusionment for 8 years. So this is an incredibly fast-moving technology when compared to other campus technologies. We anticipate generative AI to probably be here in 2026, and our hype cycles are released in July and August. This is where we are projecting Gen AI to be. And the reason for this is there are parts of enlightenment when it comes to artificial intelligence. People are finding real use cases and tangible value. But what I want to talk about is all of the competing emotions that come with Gen AI that you and your students likely feel on a daily basis. There's excitement. Think about when you find something really cool you could do with AI that you've never done before. You may be curious about looking at other vendor solutions than the basic ones you use on your phone every day. There was acceptance with a lot of institutions, but I actually recently spoke with an institution this year in 2026 that decided to ban AI completely on their campus because they truly believed that it was completely crushing critical thinking and learning retention. Think about how that impacts the students. There is quite a bit of this fear and fatigue, but I will tell you with most of the global higher ed institutions I work with, it's actually more fatigue than fear. Many of you in this room are probably saying, how many AI presentations am I going to have to sit through this year? I'm already tired of talking about it, and it's March. So there is that fatigue. I mean, you cannot escape AI. No matter what conversation you are having on your campus, AI will likely be brought into the discussion. So I want you to think about where AI is as we move through this presentation today. We're going to talk about the hype of AI, but also the actual reality and the practicality of some of these large language models. This is important, and this is one of the reasons why AI remains in the trough of disillusionment. I want to point out the very obvious human and technology gaps that people often forget about. We have artificial intelligence coming at us from every different angle. I know sometimes it's hard to tell if a video is artificial intelligence when I look on Instagram. Every single day, we say AI-generated content. So I want you to think about the volume of AI-generated information that's coming out on a daily basis and the human capacity to actually absorb all of that information. It's certainly impossible, so there will be a learning gap as we move throughout AI evolution. On top of that, something that always makes me chuckle, when I speak to a CIO, they say, Grace, we want to be on the bleeding edge of technology. We want to have the best and brightest AI tools. We want this to be our differentiator on campus. But my board and stakeholders want me to do this for free or at a heavily discounted rate. So how do I do that? Well, you can't, and there will be a stakeholder expectation gap as well as a governance gap. You will not be able to pilot every single AI vendor that all of your stakeholders on campus want to pilot. That's just not realistic. So even just determining and prioritizing what AI vendors you're going to go after is going to become incredibly important. And then finally, since I even started this presentation today, there has been more AI vendors that have come to market. So I want you to think about the number of AI products out there and your ability to actually monitor and evaluate what is going on. There's going to be a very large and growing adoption gap. So again, this plays to the human readiness as well as the AI readiness with gaps in our current technology adoption. So this is our Gartner positioning system. And I'm not going to say the acronym because Gartner loves acronyms, but it is GPS, just a different type of GPS. Most of our industries, and I'm not just talking about higher education here, I'm talking about banking, retail, healthcare, manufacturing, they're in this bottom diamond where neither AI or humans are ready. And this really helps you pinpoint how ready you are for every AI use case you pursue. What we're really looking at here is almost 50% AI readiness and 25% human readiness. Most of the institutions I speak to are trying to get to this top left diamond of actually capturing and sustaining AI value on campus. We have a long way to go until we get to that top diamond of actually transcending limits, where humans and AI are working together in perfect harmony. I think a lot of vendors really like to message that, but we have a long way to go until we get to that transcending limits. We're really at more of that 50% readiness and less human readiness. And the reason for that is, well, right now, most people are still piloting AI on campus. There are some enterprise-wide adoptions, but the actual infrastructure and data needed for very large-scale deployments, agentic AI across campus, very advanced capabilities and clean data, we're getting there, but we're not there yet. So how do we get to the future of state of AI, where both AI and humans are ready? Well, it's going to be two-pronged. One, we need to understand AI transition costs. And something we're going to discuss today is called AI cost creep, and how you may not be able to understand the total cost of ownership when it comes to some of your AI investments. On top of that, I see a lot of institutions really favoring one AI vendor. And I advise against this because your students, your faculty, and your stakeholders need to have an understanding of very differentiating AI tools and their use cases. You do not want to be a one-trick pony when it comes to AI adoption. And then with AI readiness, you need to establish AI-ready data. This is probably the most critical piece for my higher education institutions right now. A lot of the times when we look at your underlying infrastructure, your data is simply not ready to implement all of the advanced tools that you would like to on your campus. Now, we know a lot of this because most of the time we're talking about AI vendors. The most common conversation I have at Gartner is, who are the vendors in the landscape, what do they do, and what other institution is using them? That's fine. But what about human readiness? One thing I really admire about Adrian and his team of AI educators is they are continuing to build literacy on campus. That's tremendously important. You need to continue to build literacy with not only your students on campus, but your workforce, your faculty, your IT department. And on top of that, we talk about AI redesigning some roles and workflows. That will absolutely happen. As AI progresses, your role at the institution may fundamentally shift. That takes a lot of time and preparedness. Many organizations worldwide are not ready for that right now. We are going to talk about mass layoffs in a moment and the fear around AI, but this role and redesign is critical, especially as organizations shift. And then from a human readiness perspective, we still need to continue on building on ethical guardrails and governance. What do you have in place right now that really helps set the direction for the institution? So how do we get to a point in the GPS where both AI and humans are ready? We need to have a two-pronged approach where AI and humans are collaborating and advancing across higher ed institutions. People tend to focus on the left-hand column here, not as much on the right-hand column. I now want to talk about what I'm observing and seeing. And again, why I like to compare this to other industries is because many of my higher ed leaders ask, well, what does good look like if I had unlimited budget and unlimited capacity to really go after the AI vendors and tools that I want? The reality is a little bit more sobering. This comes from our Gartner 2026 AI survey, CIO and Technology Leader View. Now, this is not higher education specific. This is across all industries. Take a look at the data. When we surveyed 700 CIOs and technology leaders, only 74% report losing money or breaking even on AI investments. On top of that, only 11% have realized clear return on investment value from AI. Now, that doesn't mean slow down on your AI investments. That means proceed with caution. We have this mass sprint to adopt the best and brightest AI tools, but many organizations are still losing money or even only breaking even on some of the AI they initially invested even back in 2024. Even less have actually realized the value from AI. Now we're going to zoom in a bit more. Higher education in a little bit of a different spot. When we surveyed higher education institutions, we found that 34% of our higher ed leaders had enthusiasm about potential use cases, but only 1% of higher ed institutions, when they deployed AI, found that it was delivering a tangible return. Again, we see progress, and I expect this survey to fundamentally shift when we do it in 2027. I anticipate delivering tangible return to maybe hover around under 15%. We are making progress, but we are still in early stages right now. So why does AI readiness remain low? I want to talk to you about a notion called AI cost creep and how it's really affecting institutions. A lot of my higher education leaders find that when they procure AI technology solutions, they really understand the cost on day one. And we go ahead and we actually do a contract review and we say, yep, okay, so this is what it's going to cost on day one for licensing, security. Day 100 looks a little bit more complicated. And I find that many of my global higher ed institutions, particularly in Europe, are paying for 3 to 4 times more than they anticipated for some of their AI vendor solutions. This is really critical. Gartner predicts that for every one AI tool purchased, there's about 10 hidden costs. And some of these are not so hidden. They're a bit more obvious, right? Of course you have to pay for licensing. Of course you have to pay for cloud compute. But a higher education leader I was speaking to yesterday said, I didn't realize how many tokens I would have to purchase. The token utilization has gotten out of control. I keep on having to feed into this system. What about integrating with some of your legacy systems on campus? So what we're finding is this notion of AI cost creep. Again, you understand the cost on day one, but what about the total cost of ownership when you're 2 years into a project? The CIOs and IT leaders who will have a competitive edge will understand and anticipate these AI cost creeps. Again, you need to anticipate a larger budget than what you initially expected because of some of these ancillary costs. I know your stakeholders will not really like this. However, it is important to anticipate. So finding AI value happens when the AI capabilities, the AI costs, and the actual AI vendors that we're using serve the purpose of our higher education institutions. Now, there's a lot of different vendors in this space right now. You're likely using 2 or 3 of these, maybe all of them. But we see a lot of the institution-wide rollouts. This is certainly a non-exhaustive list. I just posted a few here. You have the major hyperscalers like AWS, Microsoft, OpenAI. But then you have some of the vendors in this space like Oracle and Workday that are embedding agentic AI solutions into their HCM and finance systems. Still a lower adoption rate in higher education, but they are gaining traction in other industries. What I'm finding is when I tried to put up some logos for startup vendors, I almost filled the slide completely. So it was a little bit dizzying to try to include all of the startup vendors that I talk about on a daily basis. But what I have began to do through my research is start grouping and categorizing these rollouts into 5 different brackets. Now, most of the time when a smaller vendor, not a big household name, comes to your institution and tries to sell you a solution, they tend to plot along the chart of the student life cycle. So of course we have early days, enrollment AI. You've probably seen some of these smaller vendors really focus on recruiting, admissions, analytics, targeting the right talent pool using artificial intelligence. Then you have some smaller student success vendors. Obviously, there's AI tutors. There's advising, career readiness, using publicly available data about the labor market to tell your students where to really go into, where to major, where to minor. What are some of the growing trends in the labor market industry right now? We then have teachers using AI. Something interesting about instructional AI right now is this is actually where I'm seeing the most lawsuits. I just spoke to a CIO of a major K-12 school district, and they had teachers who were going rogue and using their own AI tools and grading students with AI plagiarism detectors, and the students were not aware of this. Well, the AI tool came out with false positives, and the teacher then accused the students of cheating. The students, who were being helped by their parents and not using AI, said, I didn't even know you were using AI in this class. So the one thing that I want to tell you is be very careful when it comes to instructional AI and what faculty members can and cannot use on campus. Make sure that students also know that faculty are using AI. Just a point on instructional AI there. Then, of course, we have productivity AI. Likely most of you are using personal productivity AI tools on a daily basis. This is for writing, coding, maybe some of you have research assistant AI tools. This is incredibly important, followed by the institutional AI. That is more the back end, administrative, finance use, and more of that predictive analytics. So most of the institutions right now that have a good AI strategy are constantly assessing these vendors and looking at the value they will provide long term. Now, I do see some darlings on the left-hand side that institutions tend to really lean into, and that's absolutely fine, but also focus on some of the smaller and concentrated rollouts. The number one question to ask these startup AI vendors who may come to your organization and really say you should purchase this solution, how many use cases do you have and customer references can I be provided? Do you have institutions that are in the stabilization phase, not just higher ed institutions who have signed a contract with you? That's incredibly important for maintaining that stability with some of these AI rollouts. We do have bright spots. Every single year, I write use cases on what good and practical AI use looks like on campus. And the one thing I want to point out is I don't just write these use cases to say, hey, look at this institution, they're using a cool AI tool. It's more about the quantifiable outcomes and what these institutions are actually trying to do. What challenge are they trying to solve? Couple examples of this. York University up in Canada. They created a bilingual AI virtual assistant. They obviously have a lot of French-speaking students. Help me with class scheduling. Help me find something on campus. Help me better understand financial aid. That's right, available on students' phones. Texas State University created an AI fluency and badging program right on Canvas. They found that many of their faculty members were really hesitant to use artificial intelligence. So how can we even start with Copilot 101, better understanding AI literacy and providing students with a badge so they feel like they've learned something and they can promote that on LinkedIn to potential employers. We have a couple of different use cases here, but one that I found very interesting was the University of London, which I visited last year. On campus, they walked me through how they are using AI with their law students. And they are using a very small startup vendor who is actually helping the students break down large volumes of legal information and understand legal jargon. Now, this AI tool obviously had to be tested and piloted very carefully because these students are learning whether or not someone goes to jail. The satisfaction rate of the University of London was very interesting. Some students absolutely loved it. Some students didn't want to use it at all. You may find very polarizing surveys when you conduct them on your campus, and that's okay. You are finding something through that survey. So a lot of different AI use cases, and I want to zoom in on two right now, but really focus your attention on that right-hand side. Again, what are the quantifiable outcomes? The CIO at Florida Gulf Coast University, she was really concerned, and she said, Grace, I have more of a philosophical question. It's not an IT question. Is learning and knowledge retention dead? Are my students just using ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, Anthropic, copy and pasting the answer, posting it on Blackboard, on Canvas, and then saying, okay, my assignment's done? Do we actually have students who are critically thinking, or is this the era of death of critical thinking? I'm really concerned about that. So to counteract the misuse of AI tools, they actually went with a smaller vendor. This is called Alethea by Clarivate. And what it is more of a philosophical teaching assistant. It's not going to give the students the exact answer. It's actually going to guide them through the reading assignments. So this is to counteract the potential misuse of AI tools and promote critical thinking, reasoning, and comprehension. And as you can see, 85% of students found it helped them focus on key reading contents and actually retain the information they learned. They did win industry awards, which I know is a big goal for higher education, right? You want to differentiate yourself. And there was a concentrated rollout of this. Now, it started with 250 student users. It is now up to 3,000. So again, pilot first, roll out when we find it is successful. This is an interesting one. So the University of Sydney developed an AI platform with Professor Danny Liu on campus. Now, Danny understands AI. He has built it from the ground up. But what they said is, hey, we know that these costs for AI are really prohibitive. And we want not only our institutions in Australia and New Zealand, but we want institutions worldwide to use our AI platform that was trained ethically, with privacy concerns in mind. And what it's going to do is really help with virtual tutoring. And what they found when they built this on Microsoft Azure and OpenAI powered platform, they were able to send this across several institutions. You can now see there's 45,000 active users across 90 institutions globally. I anticipate that this will be the future of AI use. More higher education institutions will build AI agents, AI models that other higher ed institutions can use. That is if we work together, but just one strong use case. Now, right now, this is more popular in Australia and New Zealand, but we do have a couple of US-based institutions who are using this as well. And then we get to agentic AI, which I anticipate you will likely hear more than generative AI in the next 12 to 18 months. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the sniff test when it comes to agents. There's a lot of agent washing going on right now where I see vendors rebranding existing products that they've had for 3 or 4 years, and these are very general RPA tools or chatbots, and they're saying, hey, this is now agentic. Well, not really. It's the same tool you've had on the market for several years, but what agents are supposed to do is have autonomy. They are supposed to act on your behalf. You'll notice that when you use AI tools right now, you're doing a lot of the legwork. You're the human in the loop. You're doing a lot of prompt engineering. A great example of this is I often use ChatGPT to help me find information about a destination. Tell me about Italy. Where should I go? Where should I avoid? What restaurants should I go to? But until that solution then finds me the best and cheapest flight to get there, books my Airbnb, makes reservations at restaurants, it's not truly agentic. It is not acting on my behalf. So when you have vendors coming to you and saying, we truly have agentic capabilities, ask how involved the human is in this process. And this is very clear when we look at the hype cycle. One more. When we look at the hype cycle, it is still on the peak of inflated expectations. This is another one that we anticipate moving through the hype cycle very quickly. It will likely reach the plateau in less than 2 years. But the adoption rates are why it still remains very hyped. Only 6% of public sector organizations have adopted true AI agents. 34% of public sector institutions anticipate they will likely adopt some of these agents in the next year. However, we're still a bit slower in the curve when it comes to AI, agentic AI adoption. We made it to our final part, which is where are we going with all of this? I want to acknowledge right now that there are a lot of students on your campuses that are probably frightened about where they are supposed to go when they graduate. We've had the CEO of Anthropic warning that AI could eliminate half of entry-level white-collar jobs that your seniors will likely be in the next several months. We actually have a great part of Gen Z being called the tool belt generation because, believe it or not, a lot of Gen Z students are saying, I want to go into the blue-collar industry because I want to do something that feels real, work with my hands. I don't want to be replaced by AI. So there is this generalized fear and anxiety where many seniors have always wondered, what am I going to do when I graduate college? That's now being amplified because the tools that they worked with in a university setting, they are now competing with in the workforce. So what happens? And I want to talk about the real underlying fear that many of us have in this room. This is not just exclusive to higher ed students. Will AI replace my capabilities? What I do? And I'm not just talking about you as an employee at your university, I'm talking about your individuality, what you do on campus. Unfortunately, work plays a really big part in our identity. We spend a lot of hours at work. So the question remains, well, if AI can do what I do, and it's really impressive and faster and better, what is my value? What am I contributing to the workforce? By the way, I am saying this as a knowledge worker in 2026 that publishes research in higher education, so I also feel this on a daily basis. The best answer to that question right now is looking at AI skills atrophy. We know that we use AI on a daily basis. Some of our skills will atrophy, and that's okay. Very basic capabilities like note-taking, meeting summarization when it feels like people are talking 90 miles per minute and you can't keep track. Using AI for these is absolutely fine, editing emails. But some of the skills that you do not want to lose, some of the skills you do not want to atrophy when it comes to AI are things like security skills, your critical thinking, your emotional intelligence, understanding the quality and impact of data. Is the data that I am receiving worthy of good insights? Is this hygienic data? We do not want to lose those skills to AI. So how do we think about workforce readiness? How do we combat this idea of, I'm not so sure about artificial intelligence and where I stand in the workforce? The way we like to conceptualize this at Gartner is I want you to think about a Swiss Army knife. It has a lot of different uses, right? A lot of different purposes. Well, we want to feel the same with our students. We are building a Swiss Army knife student and faculty base. We want to establish the modern AI literacy program. A lot of you already have that in place. That is fantastic. Keep iterating that literacy program as new AI tools come out. We want to use Gen AI simulators to really sandbox and build real-world experiences that students can learn from. And lastly, this new era in the workforce is about adaptability. I do not want you to think you can specialize in one AI tool, because in the next several months, that AI tool could rapidly transform and be something different. So this is a constant learning era, and this is how we stay ahead of the curveball that is coming our way. This is some research that I've been developing with actually a CIO based in Maryland, and what we were talking about is the AI spine. For a lot of these freshmen, first-year learners, they should have foundational learning. This should be a gen ed course where they are learning about foundational AI literacy, basic knowledge of what AI can and cannot do, really understanding a range of AI tools and using them wisely. Decision-making with AI. Well, how do I better understand some of the outputs that this large language model is giving me? Do I know how to create a persona with artificial intelligence? Can artificial intelligence show its reasoning and multi-role? And then finally, understanding hallucinations and bias. I am very strong on this stance that every single freshman year student should have these capabilities when they matriculate to sophomore year. They need to be understanding the 101 AI fluency. And this is also for new faculty who may be a little bit more hesitant towards AI, or some of your slower adopters who say, oh, I've been teaching the same course for 20 years, leave me alone. They should at least have some of this basic AI understanding and this AI backbone. But what about the AI-ready graduate? What does some of our seniors, graduate students need? Well, I like to call this the core four, and this is experiential learning. Every single student who is about to graduate for your university should work in an AI simulated environment. They need to practice solving real world issues in that sandbox environment. They need to have group projects where they are working with other humans, but also an AI tool, and validating, fact checking, supervising that AI tool. That's what it's going to be like for them in the workforce. Something that I haven't seen as much, but some institutions in California are doing this right now that's pretty interesting, is this failure-based learning. Hey, AI made a mistake. You need to correct it. How do you go about that? And then finally, cross-disciplinary. Right now when I visit institutions, I'm seeing, and I always ask students, are you using AI on a daily basis? I don't like that depending on their major, that answer is very diverse. Every single student should be using some form of AI on their campus, cross-disciplinary. So the main point of this is that AI does not stand still. It will constantly iterate. We're talking about agentic AI. There will be a new buzzword in probably the next 2 months. Right now, I see a lot of institutions saying, okay, we have an AI task force. We're done. We're good. We figured it out. We have this whole AI thing solved. Well, you still need to evaluate the current state, what current AI technologies you have on campus, and guide leadership through some of these major transitions. Institutional leadership, when I speak to them, when I speak to the board, I find that they have not reviewed their AI strategy since 2024. That's a problem. Think about how much AI has changed since 2024. We then move to more of the functional leads, IT leaders, HR, finance. How are you embedding AI and agentic AI into some of your core systems in ERP? Then we have the users. Are you adopting the best tools? Are you using a diverse set of tools? Do you fundamentally understand when you can and cannot use AI on campus? Of course, faculty communities better explore and learn, but faculty, if you are in this room, please understand that your university cannot adopt every single AI tool you may want. So have that expectation. And then, of course, we have the champions and researchers. You need to be the ones to distill the needs, the possibilities, and the potential pilots for the future. This is a living, breathing cycle, and it needs constant iteration for it to work with your institution. It is not just the CIO and the AI task force that is guiding and leading AI strategy. So how do we get to that sustained AI value? Very simple roadmap I like to take my institutions through. One, I want you to audit your current portfolio on campus. What was the original purpose and goal of that AI investment? Does it have any return on investment? Have you assessed total cost of ownership and AI cost creep? Maybe some of the AI vendors that you're working with were once freemium, now charging you. Pay attention to that. Then you have to identify some of the gaps in existing functionality, and I want you to revise that strategy. Again, it is constant iteration with your AI task force and your IT leadership. Users on campus should be informing those decisions as well. And then, how are we planning to really scale this across different user groups on campus and constantly keep up with the ever-changing AI landscape? I'm going to leave you with 4 core thoughts. 1, I want you to be realistic about AI, the reality of where it is, and what you may get during conferences. Look at the hype and be very critical of the hype. I want you to be very intentional with AI use, when and where you use AI. Constantly learn and build literacy. I talk about AI every single day. I still take mini boot camps, especially if they're free. That's nice. But I try to look and see what different vendors I can potentially explore. That needs to be happening. Your students should be doing that as well. And then finally, the biggest differentiator of it all, continue to be human. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Adrian.
Yes, thank you. It was wonderful.
I did not mean to do that. I'm sorry.
Excellent. Another thank you to our keynote speaker, Grace. That was beautiful. Thank you. Yes. Some things I took away from that presentation that I'm proud to say I think our AI roadmap here at USC falls right in line with many of the things that the research that Gartner is doing points out specifically. We're thinking about AI literacy. We were happy to launch our Gartner AI Fluency 101 course this past January, where we have now a couple hundred folks who've received badges for the very reasons that Grace highlighted as we prepare our students for this future, where AI will definitely be a, if not requirement, strongly position them ahead of their peers from other institutions. So we're going to transition into our first panel discussion today. And this will be a faculty panel discussion along with some friends with Zoom as well. Also, can we give a clap of hand to the Russell House event staff? Aren't they amazing? Thank you. Ryan and the Russell House have been nothing but great to me, so that is wonderful, wonderful. So our panelists, if you all want to make your way to the front, we'll get started right at about 10. Take a break, bio break, get some water, and then come back. Also, I hope you do listen to the panel while they are speaking. You can also submit questions here. So we have some pre-written questions that our moderator is going to give, but please scan this QR code, and as time permits, we may feature one of your questions. So thank you. Wonderful. So we're going to get started with our panel discussion, and I would like to introduce Dr. Keejalyn Folk, another one of our AI educators here at USC, who will be moderating the panel, as well as Dr. Kushal Jha, my other AI educator. I'm in good company, you know? So we'll go and kick it off. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the State of AI at USC. I am your panel moderator, Dr. Keejalyn Folk, an AI educator. Today's panel focuses on how faculty are encountering and working with AI in teaching, research, and service. What's changing in day-to-day practice? where questions are emerging, and how this connects to academic integrity and institutional responsibility. I will have the panelists to briefly introduce themselves, telling us your name, your role, and how you are connected to AI.
Hi, I am Dr. Angie Starrett in the College of Education and Developmental and Educational Science. I'm also the Director of Research for SC Teacher, which is a legislative funded project to study the educator pipeline in South Carolina. With the SC Teacher project, we are figuring out ways to leverage both large language models and predictive analytics to better study the pipeline, also push some of the ways that we are thinking about measurement of things like latent constructs. And then we're also thinking about some of the translational pieces of this work for our district partners and what this means for stakeholders in education.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Clay Owen. I'm professor of practice in the School of Journalism here. I've been here at USC for just finishing up my second year after a long career at AT&T in public relations and CNN as a journalist. And so here at the School of Journalism and at the full College of Information and Communications, I'm leading the AI efforts, and we're doing this on a number of ways. We're doing community efforts. I see my friend Bob Dyer out in the audience from Palmetto College. We have done classes throughout South Carolina to educate the general population of South Carolina on AI. There's a little bit of focus on small business and nonprofits. We have programs to educate our faculty. We are working on ways to build a fundamental course for all CIC students. And we're just looking at how we can best integrate AI, as Grace was saying, to make sure that our students get out into the workplace ready to dive into a whole new brave world.
Good morning. My name is Drew Martin, and I'm in the College of Hospitality, Retail, and Sport Management, and I am an AI guy. My role is to help the college to integrate AI into teaching and research, and I guess we're doing what they're doing, so there's no point in repeating it.
Good morning, I'm Az İnce, Darlamur School of Business, and I've been chairing the AI Initiative Committee, and our focus priority has been integrating AI into classes, into preparing our students for the workforce, improving their AI literacy while preserving academic integrity and preserving fundamental knowledge, fundamental skills. So that balancing act, that's been a priority. Also building relationship with industry, with partners to improve our students' experiential learning, which will be increasingly important with AI in the picture. And academic integrity, again, has been a big priority for us.
My name is Mark Uline. I'm currently the chair of biomedical engineering. Do a lot of AI-related projects and research, trying to do more with our college in education. I've very recently been asked by the president and the provost to take on a new role, which I accepted. I'm the associate vice president and vice provost for AI strategy for the university. And I'm looking forward to working with everyone to try to break down some silos that I think are prohibiting us from acting as a cohesive unit to really tie together research, education, and service that's important to our state flagship university. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Williams, and I'm here from Zoom. And I'm sitting here listening to all these folks here, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting. But I am the education product architect at Zoom, and my role really is to work with a lot of our product managers to figure out ways in which we can help facilitate education across our platform and across and make education much more accessible and inclusive for all of our customers and our prospects. Happy to be here today. We have a session later today, just down the hall in Ballroom A, where I'll be speaking in about an hour about the transition from more of a classic campus to more of an intelligent AI campus and what that means and Zoom's vision for that. So happy to be here and looking forward to the discussion today.
All right, thank you so much for introducing yourselves. We'll go ahead and get started. So question 1, and anyone can answer, how are faculty currently encountering generative AI in their teaching, research, or service roles? And I'll say the question again. How are faculty currently encountering generative AI in their teaching, research, or service roles?
Well, it's not surprisingly, it's everywhere, especially student work. So that has been a big shift in a very short amount of time. And I've definitely seen it in my homework assignments, the impact of AI. The downsides are usually a little bit more visible and can be seen in the short term. The benefits may take a long term. So it has been a challenge dealing with that, trying to provide clear guidance to students about responsible use. And they are struggling with lack of clear guidance. So I think that it's very important to be coordinated because of that, because if they are getting different messages from different classes, different colleges, it creates confusion. So student work is big. I'm seeing it more and more research-wise as well, and I think the system is not ready for it, so it's a huge stress test for scholarship. I'm seeing journals under a lot of pressure, number of papers being submitted, so it's going to require a complete rethinking of the publication process and what that means for promotion, tenure, university's role. And service is also very interesting because there are big governance concerns regarding service, private data, privacy. So I think we need to have a very serious discussion about how we can improve the productivity of the universities, and we certainly need that. And there's a lot of opportunity there, but it needs to be very responsibly done, very carefully, intentionally done. All three areas.
Well, I teach writing, so you can imagine what that means for our students who could take a set of facts, feed it into ChatGPT, and have a perfect AP-style inverted pyramid news article in seconds. So what we've done is we just make them write in class. There's no homework. There's no homework. They have to write in class on Blackboard, essay style, and then it's graded by me. But we also do integrate AI into it, because one of the things that I find that all students do struggle with at the beginning is feature writing. It's a very difficult task for most students. So if they do a draft in class, then I do send it home and I'm like, send it through your AI. Present this to ChatGPT. Tell it what you want to do. And they come back with a reflection, and the lights quite often come on. And somehow they actually listen to the AI sometimes a little bit better than they listen to me.
We probably don't have enough time for me to say everything I have to say about this topic, but I'll just touch on a couple of points. First, and these would be just observations that I've had from my college, and probably things are different in other colleges, but I think that most of my colleagues are using generative AI as just an instructor's aid and not using it as a teaching and learning tool. We're just doing a little bit of prompt engineering to get ideas or generate tests, or maybe some are using it for grading. But that's not the real advantage of these tools. Another thing that I want to just share is there's a lot of frustration with the writing assignments. how do we identify where something has been turned in that doesn't really represent the student's effort?
So I primarily teach PhD students in advanced quant methods. So I'm teaching things like structural equation modeling, and I teach this in R. And it is very easy to get R code from ChatGPT. And so I've really been trying to almost change their way of approaching the class, right? And this goes for all of us in this room. We are all, give me the answer now, right? I mean, even when we type in an address into Apple Maps or whatever navigation app we're using, right? We get the address and we drive there based on the directions. We don't even really think about it anymore. And I see this happening in class, right? And this isn't just a product of AI. It's been for a while, right? We heard the keynote talk about the kind of the diminishing critical thinking, and I would argue also the diminishing curiosity. And so I've tried to restructure my classes so that they have the curiosity to reverse engineer the answers that they're getting. And then can they defend them, right? So getting away from turning in the papers, which I can do since it's not writing, and being able to go back to those oral defenses, right? And stand up in front of me and their peers and defend the answers that they're getting, and learning the prompt engineering that goes beyond just give me the code that's going to run and give me, the answer that I want for the model. So.
Thank you so much for your answers. Staying with the faculty experience, I'm looking at questions that are appearing here on the computer from the audience. And I want to ask you all this question because it kind of aligns. Is it fair for professors to ban students from using AI tools for assistance while simultaneously using AI tools to judge the authenticity of their work? Doesn't that create a contradictory standard in higher education? And what should students do when caught in that contradiction? Yes. So let me just say, we are not using AI detection tools. We know that they don't give enough accurate information for us to judge students by that. So does anyone want to take that question?
I don't think there's anything inherently wrong about faculty using tools that are different than students. I mean, we do that all the time. I mean, that's because goals are different. But I think the key thing is transparency, and I think that's what the students need. As long as we are transparent and nothing is hidden about what we are doing and why we are doing it, I think that's going to take care of itself.
All right, thank you. And yes, we definitely want to be transparent anytime we're using any type of artificial intelligence. Staying with the faculty experience, our next question is, what questions or concerns are faculty raising most often when AI enters the classroom conversation?
So being that I work in product, I do hear a lot of this feedback from customers around concerns of where's my data going, how is it being used. I can say from our perspective, from Zoom's perspective, we're not training on your data. We're not retaining it that way and using it in any way to train our models or anything like that. I will say that the requests that we get oftentimes along the transparency route of notification of when something is being recorded, notification and very much transparency of is an AI present in this moment right now, and what is it doing, right? And so as a vendor that is supplying, AI features in its product, we very much hear that concern, and we do supply those notifications. And I think, as we continue down this road, I think it's going to be even more important that we do that. It was asked earlier about what is the authenticity of the content that's being presented. So we get requests like, I would love to, we really want to promote the use of AI, but I also want to know what was generated by AI and what was an original thought by the student. You know, could you do something where it's almost like track changes, right? In Microsoft Word, where I can see, I want them to ask really, inquisitive questions, but I also want to make sure that those questions are their own and not somebody else's, right? So I think there's a lot of asks right now, and I love the idea of having, a partnership between, the vendor and the universities here to figure out what are these challenging, pieces that we have to go through to figure out, and how to, it's not a fad. I think the presenter earlier today said it's not going away, right? So how do we work with it? How do we utilize it to the best of its ability to, again, enhance both our students' lives and our own, but do that in an ethical and a very transparent way.
One thing that we've done in our college is for almost 20 months, have had a partnership with Boodlebox, and they're here right now. And what we've done is we've had student and faculty licenses, so students work on projects with their professors, and so we can see their prompts, we can see their thought process, and we can see how that information is woven into their assignments and projects. And so it becomes a collaborative effort, it becomes one with oversight, and not all of the faculty are doing that right now. It's only maybe 20% of us that are using it this way, but we're aiming for 100% in the future, because I agree the tool's not going away.
I think it's a really good point. And yesterday at our faculty meeting, several of our faculty presented great work by our students in advertising and journalism. And one of the most amazing things I saw was a brand campaign where the student started with a very basic drawing that they had done in Illustrator, and then took that, fed the correct prompts into it through ChatGPT, enhanced the image, built an entire brand based on it, and this thing won awards. And the awards, that was very straightforward. I mean, it was for AI, but our students are using it as an iterative process, so that they are using, the skills. It is another tool in the toolbox, put it like that, right? It is because when you're in advertising, in design, you're going to use all the Adobe products, right? You're going to use Illustrator, Photoshop. They're all, again, as Grace said in her thing, they're all getting AI built into them. So it's just another tool that they are using to create, enhance, iterate upon, and produce a final product. But it's part of what we have to do, is bring these tools to them.
All right, thank you so much for your answers. We will now shift to thinking about institutional priorities. How do you see AI intersecting with longstanding USC priorities such as academic rigor, integrity, and student success? And I'll say the question again. It was a long one. How do you see AI intersecting with longstanding USC priorities such as academic rigor, integrity, and student success?
So I find this to be a very discipline-specific question. I think that looking at each of the majors across campus, the amount AI is in the opportunity sector versus threat sector is very different. And having the discussions that I know that faculty are having, and hopefully having with their students, which I think that they are, is exactly what was discussed during the keynote of what skill sets are we potentially losing with this technology as a society and as a discipline, right? So that's going to be depending on how much oversight you have. So biomedical engineering, highly regulated field, lots of responsibility focus on that. So using it to be ahead of the curve, but using it responsibly to make sure we don't do anything unethical. And that answer, I feel, is going to be very different with different disciplines. So.
The institution and the industry do not move at the same speed. And I think that is a source of frustration for us trying to be cutting edge and working ahead. It's us collectively that are creating this challenge for us to move forward. It's the things that I've done have taken such a long time to pass through all of the steps in the process. 2 years ago, I would say we were, in our college, we were cutting edge. We've lost so much ground waiting for all of the institutional approvals for things.
I will add in education, especially K through 12 education, I always argue that we're data rich and information poor. And we have historically had a lot of problems integrating data, right? We've got school report cards, we have community level data like Bureau of Labor Statistics, American Community Survey. We have Department of Education has funded state longitudinal data systems for the state of South Carolina, where we have student state data systems as well as educator state data systems. With SE Teacher, we are pulling this together and leveraging AI in this environment to better understand why teachers move to different schools, why teachers move to different districts, and why teachers ultimately leave the pipeline. We're doing the same for school administrators, so principals and assistant principals. And you say, well, what does that have to do with the institutional goals? Well, I'm working closely with the Dean of Education as well as the Chair of Teacher Education, right? Because that information directly feeds how we think about pre-service teachers, right? And how we think about our coursework. And so that's just one way we're trying to close the feedback loop.
All right, our next question is going to shift from those perspectives of our institution to your practice. What does responsible faculty use of AI look like in practice beyond simply allowing or banning the tools? All right, I'll repeat it, and then specific examples is what I'm really looking for. So think about your workflows, planning, grading, feedback, research, advising. What does responsible faculty use of AI look like in practice beyond simply allowing or banning the tool?
I'm a little bit of a different faculty member here because I do teach, but I also have all my other special projects that I work on. One of them is something I've created in our Social Media Insights Lab, which is the college sports social pulse. So we actually measure the social media influence of college football teams, players, and coaches, and now we're doing it for March Madness. Now, I'm not a mathematician. You'll be shocked to know this with a journalism major. But you hear a lot of people talk about vibe coding, where you can just tell the AI, platform to write some code for you. Well, I'm a vibe mathematician because I know what I want the data to say, but I don't know how to get there. And what I've done is I've presented the problem. It's come back with answers and mathematical models. And I'm very happy to say that we have some really smart people on campus, like the chairman of our statistics department is now reviewing one of my models now to make sure that the math is right. But this is what it takes. It teaches us, and we have to do this with our students too. This is all about having ideas, presenting them to the AI model, pushing back on it, then getting verification from hopefully a human, because I got to tell you, I can't trust the math on the thing because I'm not smart enough to tell you whether it's correct or not. But we have people who can do this. So that's one instance of how we are using it right away. Yesterday, we also had an AI company on campus, Verve. Nate's not in the audience today, is he? Don't think so. I was hoping he was going to be here. So Verve provides agentic, there we go with that word, agentic AI to the advertising industry. And some of the biggest advertisers in the world use their product. So they have these agents. They have one called Jenny Z, and there's this young lady who is a Gen Z, and there's her image on there, and you can ask Jenny Z anything you want to about that generation. They've got somebody who looks a little bit more like me, you know, Bob Boomer. And you can ask him about the boomer generation. But it is a fundamental way of doing secondary research using AI. And we had these guys in town yesterday working with some of our capstone students, and the feedback from these students was just so positive. Like, where has this tool been during my college career? I can plan PR campaigns and advertising campaigns to get my research done so much quicker. These are the kind of specific tools that we need to be introducing our students to so that they're ready to walk into the workforce and get going.
In my classes, 2 words that you can't use are I think. Because poodles think too, but I'm not going to take advice from poodles. So everything that we do is based on evidence. And where's your evidence coming from? And so I tell my students, provide your evidence, but you better check your evidence. And that comes from having knowledge about what you're doing and making sure that the links work on the references and the author's name is listed on the reference. These are dead giveaways that you haven't read the article. I mean, the author's name is right on the top, and I spend hours grading because I check every reference. But students need to understand that when you put your name on something and you turn it in, you live and die by what you've provided. And I'm going to turn you in to academic integrity if the reference doesn't match up.
I think one of the most important things we need to do as faculty is to rethink our courses very intentionally with AI in mind, and especially alignment between our learning objectives and what our assessments actually measure, because that has changed a lot. That's one of the biggest changes, impacts of AI. And I think a good practice would be to put ourselves in the position of a student who is heavily using AI, and what would our class experience, what would that experience be like that for them? Would they be able to get an easy A without basically learning nothing? And if the answer is yes, we really need to rethink the way we teach the class and the way we assess knowledge. And I think there, what's important is to realize that one size does not fit all. And then we're going to have certain classes, we are teaching certain things where maybe it's the right thing to do is just no AI at all, without understanding that you can't prevent it, but at least that we are asking students, look, this is fundamental knowledge, you need to build that, and we don't want you to use AI. Whereas there may be other classes, other disciplines, higher level classes where you should use AI, and I'm gonna guide you as much as possible. Like the responsible thing to do will be use AI 100%, because you are getting ready for the workforce and the type of job you're gonna do will require that. So as long as we rethink and we do it intentionally, then I think we can come up with the right experience for the students.
And I'll just add that you're not alone in this. Corporate America is also going through very similar challenges right now. I mean, I work with lots of other customers. Before I was on our education team, I worked in our on our developer side and our marketplace side. So I worked with Fortune 100s and all the like. And I can tell you they're going through a very similar thing right now. So you're not alone in this. And I'll add one other personal story. I'm not a faculty member, but I am a father. And I have 2 children and an 8 and 10-year-old. My 8-year-old boy is autistic. And 2 years ago, I got into ChatGPT and I was playing around with it, and he came and he was curious about it, what I was doing with it. And he sat down and he started to work with it. I showed him what prompting was. I didn't call it that. And he could type, but his dexterity isn't great. And it turns out he really loves art. And being somebody who's autistic, he also has a really hard time. He has a dexterity issue where he can't draw very well. And he was going through a period of very low self-esteem at the moment. And going through that as a parent it's heartbreaking, right? But I left him with that, his tablet for a little bit, and he started to explore, and he didn't know it, but he was doing iterative prompting. He started designing different pictures, and when he got done with it, he showed them to me, and the pictures were of little baby turtles. He loves turtles. And there's a little boy in the pictures too, with a sword, and the boy has got brown hair. I go, who is this? Well, that's me. And what are you doing? Well, I'm protecting the little baby turtles. And I go, oh, okay. And after about 3 days of doing some of this kind of work, his attitude turned around. He felt as if he was the hero inside of those pictures. He could communicate through those drawings, right? And I think that's important to look at, as we look at teaching and learning and the arts and how it impacts, individuals, especially individuals who may have a learning disability or neurodivergent. I think sometimes these kinds of tools can be an avenue for them to express themselves. So I guess think about that as you work with your students.
Thank you for that. And that's a perfect segue into our Zoom specific questions for this panel. So I want to get the platform perspective from you with faculty use in mind, of course. So from Zoom's perspective, how are faculty using AI-powered features to support teaching activities such as virtual class sessions, office hours, feedback or collaboration, and what use cases are proving to be most effective?
Yeah, it was mentioned earlier today that the industry is moving at paces much faster than the institution can keep up with many times, and policies definitely are way behind in this space, right? Probably decades behind. So how do we meet that challenge? And right now, what I'm seeing is our institutions. You're all asking the right questions here, right? How do we figure this out? How do we get ahead of it? How do we stay safe? But yet, how do we embrace this technology because we know it's the future, right? So I'm watching institutions doing amazing things and moving forward and pushing the needle. Some of them are taking big risks in some of these spaces. But they also feel that pressure to do that. Other ones are taking a much more conservative approach. They're sitting back, they're locking down the tools, they're locking down the firewalls. To their own dismay, the students somehow still figure out how to get on, especially in the K-12. All those kids are hackers, I swear. So I think it comes down to, though, figuring out really the trust between the institution and the student and the parents, and we also have to basically have a social contract, right? Of where does it come down to, where are the ethical boundaries of this? And I think more than ever, we do have to work across between industry and institution, right? We saw some of this, not to bring up the dark times of the pandemic, but there were amazing partnerships built out of that space to keep people alive. I was a customer actually of Zoom before I joined Zoom. I was at the University of Minnesota on the Twin Cities campus for 10 years, working with faculty in the space and also in K-12 before that. So very familiar with the pace of the institution too. But that was a time in which we saw so much rapid change in so little time. And you spoke about policy and how that was in hindering, progress and moving forward. And I think at the end of the day, it's, the progress are the humans, right? I mean, it's us to decide what we want to do with this and move forward. And to specific examples of how people are using our tool, I mean, I've got researchers, I've got librarians that are coming to me and saying, Mike, we want to be able to expose institutional resources to our students in ways that they didn't even dream of just a year ago. I want to be in a conversation, and as soon as they mention astronomy or some policy, I want the tool to come up and say, hey, there's some resources at the library down 150 yards away. Do you want me to put these on reserve for you? So they want to expose a lot of the services that they already have today that students aren't aware of. I see a lot of work obviously being Zoom, we work in the real-time space. So how do we help people assess, whether it's behavior or their knowledge or both? How do we assess that in real time and give people the opportunity to practice those skills before they get to the assessment, right? And so I think there's a lot of interesting things that are happening, and everybody at this point in time is really just trying to figure it out. And you're not alone. Everybody's doing it. We're all basically starting at ground zero together, okay? So there is if anyone tells you they're an expert and they've got 40 years of experience in this space, they're lying. So
our next question is looking ahead. Looking ahead, how do you see AI-enabled collaboration platforms reshaping faculty work and instructional design over the next 3 to 5 years, particularly in ways that still honor academic integrity and human judgment?
Oh boy, who wrote this question? I can't tell you what's going to happen 3 days from now in AI. I'll tell you this. I think there's going to be, be comfortable with change. You've always had to be comfortable with it, but you really have to be comfortable with it now. I think I read a lot of comments and I hear from a lot of people how AI has saved them a lot of time. And then I'm waiting for the and part of that. What have you done with that time? What have you done to advance your own skills? What have you done to help others? And I'm not hearing that part yet. I'm hoping we're going to get there very soon. And I think by knowing that and really reflecting on your own kind of personal interests and where you want to take things. We heard earlier vibe mathing and vibe coding and things like that. That's a very controversial topic, I'll tell you that. I hear that all the time. I vibe code, I'll tell you that. I feel like I'm back in the arcade days and pumping coins into the machine, and I'm running out of tokens and I got to get more. But I think a lot of this, on a positive note, has really unlocked a lot of creative potential, right? I shared that a moment ago about my son. I think that's also true in spaces where, with vibe coding, you may have a great idea. You think it's a great idea anyway. Why not try it out, right? What's the risk of trying it right now? Obviously being ethical about it. Don't use somebody else's information and data, but, try it out, see what happens, fail fast, right? So I think where we're seeing in the next 3 to 5 years, I'm hoping we're going to see an explosion of creativity. I'm hoping we're going to see an explosion of what we would call solo entrepreneurs. I think you're ripe to go to small businesses now and really make an impact in that space. I don't like to say we're replacing jobs. I like to say, imagine if you could multiply yourself 50 to 1,000 times over. If you could have that type of knowledge and that type of a workforce. And, I think what you're going to see is a lot of amazing things happen. And it's not just in the generative space. I think you're going to see an explosion in medicine. I think you're going to see in the research space I think you're going to see diseases to get solved in ways at an accelerated rate that we've never seen before. So I'm really optimistic what the next 3 to 5 years look like. I think it's really exciting, but I also think it could be really scary if we don't work together and partner and have that social contract together.
All right, for our panel, I have another question from the audience. This is surrounding research. We haven't quite touched on that yet, so I do want to get your thoughts on this. What are the biggest challenges facing faculty as they try to integrate AI into their research? Anybody a researcher?
There's a divide, at least in my college, where there's a small number of faculty that are familiar with Python coding, and I'm mainly thinking about data analysis. And so we've got 3 or 4 people that know how to use it, and then there's a vast number like me who don't know much. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to pull everybody up to a higher level, because the evidence from recent journal publications suggests that there's more and more of machine learning type of analysis being done, and so we need to get everybody up higher. What we've done though is we've gone over to computer science, and we've hired somebody to come and help us, an AI architect, and so he's now working with faculty to help them to learn and to help guide them through research projects.
There are huge opportunities, but we have to be very careful. I saw a report, it was a Substack post by a researcher just yesterday. So this was a data analysis project, and they repeated with the same data and the same prompt using different models, and they showed how different the results were. And if you're not being careful, it's sort of like a black box. So you really need to know. So even if it's like agentic, where we are talking about getting the human out of the loop, I mean, you can't, right? You have to be on top of it. You have to see what's going on. You have to try to understand exactly what's going on. So that kind of beats the purpose of saving time a little bit, but it's essential, right? So one of the things that they were recommending was, look, you need, when you're doing something research-wise, do it with multiple models and then compare the results, go into the weeds. And at least in the current environment, that's an essential part of the process. We also have to be very mindful about the role of graduate school and the role of our PhD students and where they fit in, because a lot of the times these tools will start to take the place or will do tasks that normally RAs would do, and that's an essential part of their training. So what will happen with that model, and if the graduate students, RAs, they are not getting that training, what will that mean for their future? So we have some important things that we need to think through.
So in my experience, the grad student has become the human in the loop. And I think so often we built it was a specific use case, building a deductive coding pipeline. And you're right, we looked across different models. We went in thinking, oh, this is going to be a simple prompt engineering task. And no, it wasn't a simple prompt engineering task. We had to think about a lot of different aspects. And yes, at the end, what we found among our 3,200 teacher responses, so this is unstructured data, we found that at the end of the deductive coding pipeline, the LLM only made a mistake 1.7% of the time, which is phenomenal. But the human was in the loop iteratively throughout, and that's how we're seeing kind of our grad students adjust. And I think that gives them a workforce readiness too, because they're part of all of this LLM work.
All right, thank you so much. And now we are at our final question, and all of you can answer one sentence each, please. If you could offer one piece of advice to faculty who are uncertain or hesitant about using AI, what would it be?
All right, I hope I'm not cheating the one sentence rule with this, but start small, but start intentionally and scale.
Work with your students rather than against them.
You're a faculty member. Be intellectually curious.
Reimagine how you measure knowledge.
It's very difficult to promote lifelong learning if you're not a lifelong learner.
And to add on that, keep coming back and trying again.
All right, so I want to thank our panelists in Zoom for joining us today. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Today was not about finding every answer. It was about deepening our understanding and opening new pathways for thoughtful engagement with our AI and faculty work. So thank you so much for entertaining our panel here today. Adrian?
Thank you. Thank you, Keejalyn, for facilitating. Thank you all. Thank you all. You're welcome. Take your seats. That's fine. One thing I wanted to highlight, it was really important for us to make sure we gave voice to both our faculty, our students, and our student support staff today. Because, AI is not one division, one department, one office, or one school's mission. Rather, it's a collective good, which we all can participate in and do well when we do it together. Okay, so hopefully you found that valuable, and you'll find the rest of our sessions valuable today as well. As we begin to transition, as a reminder, there are sessions on the second floor as well as the third floor. So please explore, visit the research and computing room. They're having great conversations there already, and the posters look amazing. Those posters are, again, from faculty, students, and staff here today. We're moving past theoretical, and we're in the practical, doing really awesome things. Okay, as a little housekeeping reminder, there's restrooms right on the second floor. Quickest to get them from here is behind 203 and 205, that ballroom area. You can go and take a bio break. The next group of sessions, the concurrent sessions, begin at 11. So find a friend, make a new one, and learn something together. Okay,